वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णो वन्दे जगद्गुरुं श्रीकृष्णो वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। श्रीमद्भगवद गीता अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। Sankhyayoga, the yoga of knowledge. Pranams from Dr. R.J. Kalpana. Welcome to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. In this session, we will look at chapter 2, the yoga of knowledge. Shloka 1. Sanjaya said, Shri Krishna then addressed the following words to Arjuna, who was, as mentioned before, overwhelmed with pity, whose eyes were filled with tears and agitated, and who was full of sorrow. In the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, or the yoga of Arjuna's dilemma, we studied the state of extreme depression that Arjuna suffered from due to his fear of destruction of his family, familial traditions and culture, and of the consequences that humanity, society would have to face, and therefore refusing to fight, he allows himself to be overtaken with grief and sorrow. Shloka 2. Sri Bhagavan said, Arjuna, how has this infatuation overtaken you at this odd hour? It is shunned by noble souls, neither will it bring heaven nor fame to you. Sri Krishna, for the first time in the Bhagavad Gita, speaks in chapter 2, Shloka 2, and says that why have you, a warrior Arjuna, allowed yourself to be overtaken by such cowardice, a cowardice that is shunned by noble souls, because this cowardice will bring you neither heaven nor any fame. Shloka 3. Continuing, Bhagwan says, Yield not to unmanliness, Arjuna, ill does it become you. Shaking off this paltry faint-heartedness, stand up, O scorcher of enemies. And so here he says, this cowardice does not become you, O scorcher of enemies. Krishna reminds Arjuna of all the many previous battles he participated in, of all the many victories that he had in war, of the fear that would take root in the hearts of his enemies at the very sight of Arjuna riding into battle. And so he reminds him of those and says, shake off this faint-heartedness. This is shunned by noble souls, by heroes, by warriors. They do not succumb to cowardice. This kind of cowardice is ill becoming you. Shloka 4. Arjuna said, How, Krishna, shall I fight Bhishma and Drona with arrows on the battlefield? They are worthy of deepest reverence, O destroyer of foes. Arjuna deeply loves his maternal uncle Bhishma and his guru Dronacharya, who taught him the science of warfare and military strategies. How can I fight these people? Krishna, he asks, they are worthy of the deepest respect and reverence from me. They should be celebrated and not destroyed. Shloka 5. It is better to live on alms in this world without slaying these noble elders, because even after killing them, we shall after all enjoy only blood-stained pleasures in the form of wealth and sense enjoyments. And so Arjuna continues in the same vein, saying that I would rather live in poverty without having to kill my noble elders of this family, because if I do, then all the wealth will be stained by their blood, and how shall we even enjoy such pleasures? How is it even possible for us to do so? In Shloka 6, we do not even know which is preferable for us, to fight or not to fight, nor do we know whether we shall win or whether they will conquer us. Those very sons of Dhritarashtra, killing whom we do not even wish to live, stand in the enemy ranks. Arjuna here fully displays the confusion in his mind by stating that he does not even know to fight or not to fight. We don't know whether we shall win or whether they will conquer us. The 100 sons of the blind king Dhritarashtra, who stand in the enemy ranks, we do not even want to kill them. And so he continues in the same vein, expressing his inability to ascertain his duty. Shloka 7. With my very being tainted by the vice of faint-heartedness and my mind puzzled with regard to duty, I am asking you, tell me that which is decidedly good. I am your disciple. Pray instruct me, who have put myself into your hands. This Shloka 7 in chapter 2 is a very important shloka, because on display here is exquisite etiquette. Arjuna here says that my mind is confused and I have a fear that has gripped my heart. And so, Krishna, I am turning towards you. Take me as your disciple and instruct me. Throughout the entire Mahabharata, we see Krishna as a friend, a peacemaker, a messenger, a negotiator, and for the first time in the Bhagavad Gita, we see him as Jagat Guru. We see him in the guise of a guru. And Arjuna here does not presume on his friendship with Krishna, which he already has and enjoyed. And so here he displays the etiquette that is required for a student of knowledge and wisdom. And so he turns to Krishna and says, I am your disciple. Pray instruct me. I have put myself into your hands. I cannot stress enough about the etiquette that we all need to display on the path of spirituality, because the doors of spiritual wisdom will not be open to all and sundry. Once in the Mahabharata, there was a young man who was deeply interested in the art of archery, but having no means to acquire a guru, he heard of this famous Guru Dronacharya, who was instructing the 5 sons of Pandu and the 100 sons of the blind king Dhritarashtra. And so he made a statue of him in deep forest, and he began his training in archery. Once, when Dronacharya was traveling to a neighboring kingdom, he happened to pass along that forest and came across this young man and was amazed by the display of skill. And so he asked him who your guru was. And the young man pointed to the mud statue that he created and said, "You are my guru." Dronacharya was taken aback, and then he demanded Guru Dakshina as is proper, and in that Guru Dakshina he asked for the right thumb of the young man, effectively ending his career in archery. Now there has been many interpretations, and the popular one was that Dronacharya did not want another student in competition with his favorite student Arjuna, who was also becoming known for his skill in archery. Now my understanding of this is slightly different. A guru of his caliber would take great pride in any student of his who would display the level of skill that is required to impress a guru. Any teacher of caliber would indeed take great pride and would rarely go out of their way to destroy anybody's enthusiasm. The reason behind why Dronacharya asked for Eklavya's thumb was because the young man did not display the necessary etiquette that is required to learn a craft. He was presumptuous, and that presumptuousness was his downfall. It is very important in all walks of life, and more so on the walk of spirituality, to display etiquette. And we will look into it more and more as we proceed along the Gita. There is one more story that I would like to share here, the story of Karna and Parshurama. Karna approached Parshurama stating he was a Brahmin and that he wanted to learn military science, and Parshurama took him on as his disciple. One afternoon, where Parshurama was resting with his head on Karna's lap, an insect begged Karna and blood flowed out of it. Karna didn't want to clench his legs, thereby disturbing the sleep of his guru, and therefore he held on, gritting his teeth, tightening his muscles, and stoically bore the pain. When Parshurama finally woke up from his nap, he saw the blood and he wondered at its presence. And Karna explained to him that something bit him that he didn't want to move for fear that he would disturb his guru's sleep. And Parshurama immediately turned in anger at Karna and said, "You are no Brahmin, you are a Kshatriya, and you have lied to me." For only a Kshatriya would have that ability to withstand this degree of pain. And because you lied to me, the secrets of these weapons that I have given you, when you need it the most, they will not be available for you. You see, etiquette, a much needed but very little expressed, and even more so in today's time. Shloka 8. Arjuna continues, "For even on obtaining undisputed sovereignty and an affluent kingdom on this earth and lordship over the gods, I do not see any means that can drive away the grief which is drying up my senses." So Arjuna continues his explanations by saying that the temptations of an affluent kingdom, sovereignty over earth, and lordship over the celestials are still not enough to drive away the grief that is present in my heart. Shloka 9. Sanjaya said, "O king, having thus spoken to Sri Krishna, Arjuna again said to him, 'I will not fight,' and became silent." Shloka 10. Then, O Dhritarashtra, Sri Krishna, as if smiling, addressed the following words to sorrowing Arjuna in the midst of the two armies. Shloka 11. Shri Bhagavan said, "Arjuna, you grieve over those who should not be grieved for, and yet speak like the learned. Wise men do not sorrow over the dead or the living." And so here, for the first time, Sri Krishna steps up into the role of the Guru and begins his instruction. Technically, by all means, we can say the Bhagavad Gita begins from chapter 2, Shloka 11. And all the rest of it is merely setting the scene for what is to come. So here, Krishna says, "Arjuna, you grieve over those who should not be grieved for." And so naturally the question arises, why should they not be grieved? The answer to this question we will look into the following shlokas. But for now, we need to understand why wise men do not sorrow over the dead or the living, and why Arjuna has spoken like one who is learned. Arjuna says in the earlier shlokas, he speaks extensively about how families are destroyed, family traditions, culture is destroyed, how transfer of knowledge from generation to generation is destroyed, how corruption sets in, and how characters are lost, values are lost, morals are lost, and thereby adharma sets in because people no longer know what is right and what is wrong. People no longer understand the concept of righteousness anymore. So, speaking like the one who is learned, and yet Krishna goes on to say, wise men do not sorrow. He has differentiated between the learned and the wise. Having knowledge of something makes us learned, but knowledge has to be sustained by experience, which then transforms it into wisdom. And it is that wisdom that we are going to see in the following shlokas. In shloka 12, in fact, there was never a time when I was not, or when you or these kings were not, nor is it a fact that hereafter we shall all cease to be. Here, Krishna outrightly establishes the eternal nature of the soul and says that there was never been a time when you and I were not present, and it is a fact that hereafter we still continue to be. Shloka 13. Just as boyhood, youth and old age are attributed to the soul through this body, even so it attains another body. The wise man does not get deluded by this. So in this shloka, Krishna speaks about the immutable, eternal nature of the soul and the transmigration of the soul from body to body to body. And the wise man does not get deluded by the various birth and rebirth cycles that a soul has to undergo. And therefore, the wise men do not sorrow over the dead or the living, because the soul is eternal. It is the physical body that is perishable. The soul is imperishable, it's immutable. Shloka 14. O son of Kunti, the contacts between the senses and their objects, which give rise to the feeling of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, are transitory and fleeting. Therefore, Arjuna, avoid them. And so here Krishna brings in the concept of the senses and the sense objects, and says that it is these contacts that brings in the dualities in life. pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow. Rise above these dualities. Do not be trapped into the pleasures of the senses because they are transitory, they are time bound. Attach yourself to that which is eternal, which will last through, which is timeless and which will last forever. And Krishna says, avoid the senses, avoid the sense pleasures. And how to avoid them? In Shloka 15, Krishna says, Arjuna, the wise man to whom pain and pleasure are alike and who is not tormented by these contacts becomes eligible for immortality. And so here he says, treat pain and pleasure as alike, as one and the same, and do not be agitated by either of it. Over excitement for pleasure, overwhelming sorrow for pain. They are extremes of emotions. That is not the path that we should follow. That is the path towards destruction, the path towards immortality, the path towards contact with the eternal nature of our soul is to have a balanced approach. Treat both pain and pleasure, joy and sorrow alike, so we can rise above them. So in this session, we will come to a stop here at Shloka 15, and in the next session, we will look at the remaining shlokas. Om Yogesham Satchidanandam Vasudevam Vrajapriyam Dharma Samstapakam Veeram Krishna Vande Jagat Gurum Shri Krishna Vande Jagat Gurum Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu.